Hi, if you don't already know me, my name is Kennedy. I create crochet and craft content. And today I'm going to show you how to crochet this super cute lacy flower checker sweater. This sweater is perfect for a swimsuit cover-up if you're going on vacation. I know summer is pretty much already over, but whenever it's a little bit warmer outside, you need a light cover-up, this sweater is going to be perfect. Now this pattern might look a little bit intimidating at first, but it's actually very easy. It works up relatively quickly and only uses a few different stitches, making it a perfect beginner project. And without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. For this tutorial, you'll need to know how to do a chain, a single crochet, a double crochet, a slip stitch, and how to sew crochet pieces together. If you're unfamiliar with any of these techniques, or maybe you just need a refresher, there's a playlist linked in the description with some tutorials. Let's talk about the materials. You'll need your yarn of choice. It can be any fiber type, size, or color. I've chosen a cotton weight 1 yarn in this really pretty matcha latte color. If you're curious, here are the details from the label in case it's helpful. I used about 10 of these for my sweater, which is about 500 grams, but the amount of yarn you'll need for this project will of course depend on your sweater size and the weight of your yarn, so just keep that in mind. You'll need a crochet hook that matches the recommendation on your yarn label. I'm using a 3mm hook. You'll also need scissors, a soft measuring tape, something to use as a stitch marker. You can use earrings, bobby pins, or safety pins. And you'll also need a tapestry needle to weave in your ends. So before we start crocheting, we'll need to get some measurements first. Take your favorite sweater or top and lie it flat on the ground. I want my end product to be a bit oversized, so I'm using my favorite sweater as a template, but if you want yours to be more form-fitting, you can also use a t-shirt. Using your soft measuring tape, you're going to measure the width of the body panel of your sweater from side seam to side seam. Then measure the length of your sweater from top to bottom. Next, you'll measure the width of the sleeve starting at the top of the shoulder. And so this measurement should be taken at the widest part of your sleeve. After that, measure the length of the sleeve from seam to the cuff. Once you have your measurements, I recommend writing them down like this to help you visualize. I've labeled my body panel measurements as A and B and my sleeve measurements as C and D because I'll be referring to them throughout the tutorial. Now we can get started on crocheting the flower checkered stitch. It's a 3-row repeat, which means each sort of checker box is made up of 3 rows, which you then repeat until you get to your preferred length. And each of these flower and solid squares are made up of 7 stitches, except for the ones on the ends, which are made up of 8 stitches because we have an extra stitch for the border. I'm going to crochet the sleeve panel first, so start with a slip knot and add it to your hook. Then, using multiples of 7, create a chain that is 2 times the length of your D measurement, which is the width of your sleeve. So my chain ended up being 20 inches, which was 98 stitches. So go ahead and pause the video and create your chain according to whichever measurement you end up having for the width of your sleeve. Once your chain is the correct length, you'll add 4 more chains. 2 of these are going to be extra stitches so that we have a nice border, and then we're going to use the other 2 for our first turning chain. In the 3rd stitch from your hook, you're going to put a double crochet, so that's 1, 2, again that's your turning chain, and 3. This is where you're going to put your double crochet. Yarn over, insert your hook into that 3rd stitch, yarn over again, pull through, you have 3 loops on your hook now, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through those last 2, and that's your first stitch. This is optional, but I always put a stitch marker in my first stitch to make it easier to keep track of where my row ends later on, because sometimes it's not super obvious. Next, put 7 more double crochets into the next 7 stitches for a total of 8 double crochets. And this will be the first layer of our solid square. Next, we'll move on to the first layer of the flower square. So you're going to chain 3, and then skip 3 stitches, and in the 4th stitch, you'll put a double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then you'll chain 3, and that will be the end of the flower square. To repeat the solid square, you'll skip 3 stitches and add a double crochet into the 4th stitch. And then add 6 more for a total of 7 double crochets. As you can see, each square is made up of 7 stitches, and you'll continue to repeat this alternating pattern until you reach the end of the row. So for the next flower stitch, again, you'll chain 3, skip 3 stitches, add a double crochet into the 4th stitch, chain 3, and skip 3 stitches. And then you'll start your solid square in that 4th stitch and add 7 double crochets. So pause the video and meet me back once you're ready to do your last square in the row. My last square will be a flower square, so as always we're going to chain 3, skip 3 stitches, add a double crochet into the 4th stitch, chain 3, skip 3 stitches, and in the very last stitch we'll add a double crochet. And because this is an end square, we have that 1 extra stitch for the border, so this is 8 stitches instead of our usual 7. If you're ending on a solid square, you'll just do 8 double crochets instead of 7. Now we'll start our second row, so we'll chain 2 for our turning chain and then turn our work. In the first stitch, we'll add a double crochet. When you're starting a new row, your first stitch will always be 1 double crochet. For the next row of our flower square, we will chain 2, skip 2, and put a single crochet into the 3rd stitch. This will be the stitch right before the double crochet post from the previous row if you're having trouble locating it. Then add 2 more single crochets for a total of 3. Then you'll chain 2 and skip 2 stitches. Next, in the 3rd stitch from your hook, you'll start your solid square with 7 double crochets. You're going to repeat this pattern until you reach the end of the row. So for the next flower square, you'll do a chain 2, you'll skip 2, do 3 single crochets, chain 2, and then skip the next 2 stitches. Then for your solid square, you'll do 7 double crochets, as always. Whatever square is your last one will always end in 1 double crochet stitch, and you'll have 8 stitches instead of the usual 7. So go ahead and pause the video and repeat that pattern until you reach the end of the row, and then meet me back for the 3rd row. Now it's time to do our 3rd row, which will complete the pattern. And it's super easy because you're just going to repeat the very first row that we did. So chain 2 and turn your work, then add 8 double crochets to finish that first solid square. For the flower square, you'll chain 3, skip 3 stitches, and add a double crochet into the 4th stitch from your hook. That's going to be that very center single crochet from the previous row. Then chain 3, skip 3 stitches, and for the solid square, then you'll add 7 double crochets, and you'll just repeat this until you reach the end of the row. We've finished all 3 rows, and as you can see, our pattern is complete. Moving forward, you'll just repeat these 3 rows until you reach a length equal to your seam measurement. The only thing that is different is that your starting square will alternate every 3 rows. So for example, my last square was a flower square, so my next 3 rows will start with a solid square. To start my second set of 3 rows, I'll chain 2, turn my work and add 8 double crochets for the first solid square. Again, this is because our last square was a flower square. So once I've added those 8 double crochets, next is the flower square. So I'll chain 3, skip 3, add a double crochet, chain 3, and skip 3. For the next solid square, I'll add 7 double crochets and continue to repeat this pattern until the end of the row. Then I'll repeat the next 2 rows that I showed you previously to complete the squares. And just keep repeating those sets of 3 rows until you reach your C measurement, which for me is 17 inches. So go ahead and pause the video and continue crocheting until you reach your desired length for your first sleeve panel, and then meet me back for the next step. This next step is optional but recommended. I'm going to add a border to the edge of my sleeve panel because I think it makes the overall piece look a lot neater and it's easier to sew together at the end. So chain 2, add 1 double crochet to each stitch. When you get to the end of the row, you'll add another double crochet into your last stitch, so there should be 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Then rotate your work and you're going to add 1 double crochet into each spot that you can find. This isn't going to be very exact, so it's going to take a little bit of eyeballing, and I just try to space out my stitches so they don't get bunched up, but again, it might take a couple of tries for you to get the spacing right, so don't be afraid to undo stitches and repeat them. Then repeat that on the other sides, and when you get to the last side, you'll just slip stitch into that very first border stitch that you created to close the border. Then cut your string and yarn over and pull through the thread to secure your panel. Using the techniques I showed you, you're going to repeat the sleeve panel, and then you'll also create 2 body panels, so you'll have a total of 4 panels. So for the body panel, you'll create a chain in multiples of 7 that is equal to your A measurement. You're going to add 4 extra chains and then repeat the pattern that I showed you on the first sleeve panel, and continue crocheting until you reach your B measurement. Once you've completed all 4 panels, there's another optional step which is called blocking. Blocking is a technique of stretching and pinning your panels to a piece of foam and then leaving it for a couple of days or even weeks to flatten out. Again, this is totally optional, but I chose to block my panels because I think it makes the project look a lot neater. Here's a side-by-side of a blocked and unblocked panel to help you decide if it's worth the time. If you don't already have a set of blocking tools, I'll add an Amazon link in the description if you want to grab one. You can also look for them secondhand at thrift stores or even on Facebook Marketplace. But again, this is totally optional, so feel free to skip this step if you don't want to block your pieces. Now it's time to assemble the sweater. Lay your body panel pieces flat on the ground, then rotate them so that the short sides are facing each other. Measure about 3 to 5 inches from the edge and place a stitch marker to connect both panels. Repeat that on the other side. The exact measurement is totally up to you based on however you want the sweater to fit. The smaller the measurement, the more off the shoulder the sweater will be, so I recommend adding the stitch markers with your preferred measurement and then try it on to see if you like the fit. As you can see, my shoulder seam was originally 3 inches, but after trying it on, I wanted it to be a bit higher, so my shoulder seam ended up being 5 inches. Once you like the fit, take a piece of yarn that is 3 times the length of your shoulder seam and sew the pieces together until you reach the stitch marker. And repeat on the other side. Secure both ends of the yarn with a knot. Next, we'll attach the sleeves. Lay your body panels flat with the long ends in a vertical position as shown here. Then fold your sleeve in half and align the fold with the shoulder seam. Unfold the sleeve and place a stitch marker in the middle of the sleeve in the spot that corresponds with that shoulder seam. And add a stitch marker to both ends. Feel free to add more stitch markers to make sure the piece is extra secure when you're sewing. using a piece of yarn that is 3 times the length of the sleeve edge. Sew the 2 pieces together and secure both ends with a knot once you're done. Repeat on the other side. Now that you've sewn all the panels together, you'll have this T shape. You'll fold the sweater so the body panel pieces are touching, then sew along the long edge of the sleeve and the body panel in this L shape to complete your sweater. I recommend adding stitch markers along the edge to make sure everything stays in place while you're sewing. And then repeat this on the other side. And here is the final product. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you end up making this sweater, I would love to see it, so please tag me on TikTok or Instagram so I can like and repost your photo or video. Thanks, and be sure to subscribe for more crochet tutorials.